like whatever it may be. He does this just really cool, like in-depth kind of video essay about it, and like it tells you just kind of every detail, I would say, about something that's going on. So he did one on the Chinese Communist Party doing what they're doing to the Uyghur Muslims, and then he does a lot of like dirt on them. So it's kind of crazy. But I so I've been I would say the last like 2 or 3 weeks. My so what I used to listen to on YouTube all day, because I'm a driver, so I just kind of listen all day or what have you. Um, what I usually listen to, I usually kind of listen to the same stuff. Like I'll listen to Brett Weinstein and Heather Hines, their podcast, the Dark Horse podcast.
Yeah.
Love that. I listen to Jordan Peterson whenever I can. Although if you listen to enough Peterson, you kind of hear what he's saying over and over and over again, and you're kind of like, all right. Like, I think I understand all of his ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I need to go away, work on it a bit, and come back.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, I'll listen to like that, and like maybe the Joe Rogan podcast whenever he has someone who I want to listen to on, or maybe I'll just like hop in there to see, kind of explore people that I've never heard before, if he has them on, and then I'll listen to like I think I told you guys this, the David Pakman show.
I
remember that.
Yeah, he's like a left-wing progressive, so I just listen to him like spout the news.
Didn't you say he was like an alternative to Ben Shapiro, like the other
he's
side
like
of the coin?
He's the left-wing version of Ben Shapiro, pretty much. They're both kind of like rhetoricians, They want to do the rhetoric for the Democrats or the progressives, and then the conservatives or whatever, So he's pretty much like, I guess, the antithesis to Ben Shapiro. But actually, the last couple of weeks, I've been listening to. I think we had this discussion last time I was on, anyway, about Destiny and those kind of guys, those streamers that play games and shit and debate people.
Just that we spoke about Destiny and Jesse Lee Peterson.
Yeah. I remember now. But man,
amazing.
I've been loving the online debate kind of stuff, because what I've noticed is that it actually, I think the reason it appeals to me is because people are pretty much saying like, okay, like here are my ideas. Now, if you got a problem with it, come at me. Like, because I thought this shit out like all the way to the ends of the earth. So go ahead if you think I'm wrong. Like, try me, I dare you. And so like they have like these debates and shit. And like for someone to have that much confidence in their own ideas, to not be like just kind of making videos spewing just like, what they think is right, but instead saying, oh, if anyone from anywhere can come and challenge me if you think I'm wrong, like, and I'm just like, well, you must, like, one, I would say have a whole lot of confidence in your ideas, and two, have like an in-depth understanding of everything about your ideas, and like you must have thought this shit through and through. That's what I hear whenever I hear like Destiny debate people on things. Like it sounds like he's already thought of like what they're going to say or what they have said, and I don't know I think his education is in like philosophy or something like that, and I don't know if like from there he's learned some weird rules of logic, but when he's like listening to someone, other two people debate, he'll like predict what they have to adhere to in order for their logic to be sound. Like he'll pause it, and then he'll predict it, and then unpause it, and then that's what they fucking say. So I'm like, what? Like, where the fuck did you learn that shit? That shit, I don't know.
He's listening and understanding what they're trying to say, not just trying to combat it.
Mm.
Yeah. And the other thing about the debates and where people actually go into an arena to discuss things is there's a level of civility in an arena, because when Paul Joseph Watson makes a video, he can get right in front of the camera like this and start shouting and, oh, we should just kill those people. And it's like, you just can't say that to someone. People just don't have the ability to say that to someone else that they're in a discussion with. And anyway, if you do, you've lost the discussion. So I can see why you're interested in that sort of arena politics or arena discussion, right, rather than just rantings at a camera.
And Andrew, just really quick, I don't know if you know, but looks like at least for me, your camera isn't working. There's only like an image of you.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, George, are you seeing Andrew or just
the picture?
I'm
seeing the same thing.
Just a photo of me. Am I gone now?
Yeah, so you're gone now.
I don't know. You guys seen this? This little video is all in French. It was a video conference like this, right? And everything was going on in French. And there's a guy sitting there like this, and the image falls over, and then it's the guy sitting behind with a beer.
Classic.
Yeah, that was me just now.
Yeah.
I just had a pre-recorded conversation for you guys.
Yeah, there you go. He's sitting there behind, drinking a beer with the photo up to the screen.
Exactly. Yeah, so he's been like, I guess a lot of the debates that I've been hearing. Am I still freezing?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This image is funny though.
I found your new profile picture.
I'm not excited about this. I'm not excited to see this on YouTube. I'm just gonna keep my camera off. Okay, you guys can hear me.
Yeah, you're
good. It's fine.
All right. So, I guess, no, Destiny. So, what I've been hearing a lot is him debating on things like philosophy, and I don't. I think I told you this last time, Frank, that I don't really do philosophy. It just like. It's too much, man. Like, it gets me in my head, and then I get into that space where I'm like, I don't know if you guys ever get into that space where you're sitting there and you're like blanking out and you start breathing hard, and then you snap back into reality and you realize like, oh, I can't breathe, and you have like a fucking headache and you're sweating. But
yeah, because sometimes it's just the back and forth is too fast, and you're just like, repeat, go back 5 seconds, like multiple times.
Well, whenever they get me thinking about things like philosophy, that's when I get to that point. I'm like, oh my God, like what are the implications of this? And I just like start spiraling out of control in my own head, and then I come back to reality. I'm like, I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like, well, God, I'm thinking so hard about this thing, but like it's literally not changing anything as far as like the fabric of reality. Like I'm literally just sitting in the same exact spot that I was before I got into this like deep thought about whatever bullshit implications this thing have if it's true. And
sounds like a trip.
Well, I'm just an overthinker. I think that's all it is. It's kind of good for certain things, like material things, because at that point it's like I can gain an understanding all the way down to like I want to gain an understanding all the way down to the molecular level of how something functions. So if somebody were to question me on it, I could be like, oh yeah, well this is how it happens, and they're like, well how does that happen? I could answer these questions, but that only kind of works for material things. When you start getting into like shit like philosophy, it's like, okay, like how far down can you go in that rabbit hole?
Yeah, we've got 6 million years of evolution behind us evolving from a common ancestor with chimps. So philosophy is quite deep.
I actually just bought because there's this guy on YouTube called Perspective Philosophy, and he's a PhD candidate somewhere in like Newcastle, I think he said.
England?
Huh?
In Newcastle, England?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Geordie accent.
Yeah, he's got this weird accent. He said it's super weird. It kind of sounds like a mix of like African and English.
Hello everyone.
It's what it is Newcastle is in the northeast of England, and that was where the Dutch invaded and settled in the British Isles. So it's actually it's a bit like Dutch.
Oh, okay.
Why I?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
a bit like Dutch.
that's pretty cool. It's kind of funny hearing these people from Europe, like their accents, and you would think that all of them sound British, but then you hear like them having a discussion. It's like you two don't sound anything alike.
No, I mean
Like
the
Jordan,
Scots.
you don't sound like that guy from Perspective Philosophy at all. But you have
Yeah.
like an accent. I don't know what kind of accent you have, but
I'm a bit weird because I was born in the south of England, the southeast. But I grew up. I spent about 11 years growing up in Canada. So in England, everyone's like, "You sound like a Canadian." But in Canada, everyone's like, "Oh, you got an English accent," and
yeah.
it's like, "Well, yeah, sort of both." And occasionally, I'll say something like it's difficult now because I have to speak French like nearly all the time. So I have people cannot figure out my accent here. They can't figure out if I'm Quebecois or I'm Belgian or I'm Swiss. They're like, where in the world do you come from? And I tell them I'm from England, and they go, you sure? Like, yeah, I am. But I lived in Canada, and they're like, that's weird. That's just a weird accent you've got. And I've had some people are like, are you from Germany? I'm like, no. And they're like, you don't sound like an English person who's learned to speak French. You sound like a Quebecois who's hiding it, or a Swiss that's so they just can't figure out where I'm from. And yeah, but no, I've got a weird accent. It's a mix.
What I think in the United States, it's kind of funny because I would say that a majority of us share the same, like we share the same accent. Like we sound like I would say that Frank and I sound the same as far as our accents go.
Yeah.
And yet we live almost opposite sides of the United States. Like I live in
that distance in Europe, one of you would be speaking Portuguese and the other one would be speaking Polish.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that same distance, you're talking like Portuguese and maybe even east of Poland. I don't know. But yeah, two completely different root languages.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. Oh, I had another question. Let me finish something real quick
Sure.
about that perspective philosophy guy, and then I had a question for you guys. So about that perspective philosophy guy, he like I said, I guess I have an admiration for him because he actually has been able to do that work inside the rabbit hole of philosophy, and the things that he says, like holy shit, man, they blow my mind. I mean, half of this shit I don't even understand. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but if like you're sitting here and you're beating Destiny in a debate, and he's like a really fucking good debater, and you're having him concede points to you, like I'm just I'm like, whoa, dude. Who's like shit, and so yeah, I have a real admiration for that guy. He's fucking awesome. So I've been listening to him a lot, and I guess I've been gaining at least a little bit of a better understanding on philosophy. It made me want to buy a like a philosophy 101 book, so just so I can understand the fundamentals, so I can know what words he's using, because half of them I'm just like, okay, dude, I don't know what that word means.
Yeah. Yeah, there comes the time where it's like I gotta go to Google for like 10 minutes and
yeah, and like every 2 minutes, hey Siri, what does this word mean? Hey Siri, what does this word mean? So
yeah, that's really cool
I just
though.
called on Siri
Because I looked him up on YouTube. Yeah, it's like 3.5 hour with Destiny, and this dude is also a vegan socialist.
Yeah, that's what scares me. He's got a really sound mind, and he's a socialist, and I'm like, oh no, what kind of convincing argument do you have for that? So well, and I think he actually did debate Destiny on socialism, and I think that was the first one I had heard of him, so I didn't really understand a lot of what he was saying, but he did when he was talking about like market socialism and Destiny. What like he had agreed like yeah, this seems to be the optimal system, but we've never seen it work in practice. So he's like, that's the only problem that I have with it. That we've never seen it. There's no plan for implementation, and we've never ever seen something like this work out in practice. So I don't know how you would work that out. And the perspective philosophy guys, like, yeah, I don't really know either. Like, pretty much. So maybe it was like an ideal. Maybe it's like an ideal kind of way of being, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh yeah, I guess I have two questions for you guys. Oh,
All
before
right.
that, I gotta put something in front. God, my mind is so abstract, and this is actually a point about that.
Yeah, so like I can write it down. So you want to say the questions now before you forget?
Okay. I already forgot one of the questions actually. So.
No. Okay, we're talking about perspective philosophy. He's a socialist vegan.
Okay, I got it.
Nice. I say the questions now.
No. Well, I took them down in my notepad. So I got
Okay, cool.
Oh, and this is relative to what I just did. So what I was gonna say is last time I'd spoken with you guys, I noticed. So I guess the way in which my mind works, it jumps around, as you can see, right? I jump around and then I lose something, and then it just works in a really, I would say, abstract manner. So what I was going to try to do, because last time I was interrupting people like a lot, and I felt bad. I was like, oh, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't want to talk over people or interrupt them. So what I'm gonna start trying to do is take it down in my notepad, like what pops into my head. If I have a question or I have something to say, I'm gonna start writing, like typing it out in my notepad. So if you guys see me like texting or whatever, just know, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep my thoughts in line.
That's a good skill.
Yeah, for sure.
I noticed that, and then I noticed like I guess through having conversations with you guys over the past couple months, when I function the best is when I actually can retain those questions and those points that I have, and when I function the worst is when I keep forgetting them, and then I don't have anything to say, and then I'm trying to articulate a point and I can't because there's too much in my head. So hopefully this will be a good point of organization. Last time, even though I was interrupting a lot, I was doing that too. So I'm just gonna try to, I guess, keep my mind and my mouth under control. Right.
Yeah, so, I think you're pretty good because, the flow or the vibe changes. And I don't think you were doing it like too much where it's like, okay, Andrew, shut the fuck up. No.
The last time I was on, Andrew and Danny were on opposite ends of
yeah.
And for me, that was interesting because usually I'm the one going, yeah, no. Like, and it's like I'm a bit more in the middle of that, so it was quite good to actually see both sides of that really rip into each other, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed watching that more than participating. It was quite good, but no, there was. I haven't been on them for a few weeks, so
right, yeah, same here. Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate whenever me and like Danny have a disagreement. I think we've been disagreeing a lot lately on like everything, like the whole free will thing, and then Twitter, and like just every topic that comes up. We're like on opposite sides of the spectrum. So I think it's kind of cool though that we sit in this group, we have a discussion, and you can, I guess, weed that out of us, our own perspectives, and then you see that there's a clash there. So I mean, it was kind of like a debate last time, honestly. Like I was kind of like, I think all three of us were about Frank, George, and I, like you guys, we're all about the same when it comes to that free will argument. But Rebecca and Danny seem to be on the opposite side.
No, so
Sam Harris, you don't have any free will.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with that I thought was interesting is like I've never really gotten into like I've heard a lot of these things, and it's like I've always kind of accepted that, yeah, I'm a biological creature. My mind doesn't have absolute control. So sometimes I get to somewhere, it's like, am I done my exercise for the day? Well, I've already made up my mind. And it was quite interesting to hear what you've read, your conclusions from what you've read, because I've never really got into it, and their side too. And it's like, I probably, in that conversation, I probably shifted my opinion a bit more your way.
Okay.
And then not just that, Danny is, I would say the word is, into what is that, Andrew, again?
Hard determinism?
No, what we are. It's a compatibilism.
Compatibilist?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
compatibilist. But the thing is, like Danny, he has a different language, I would say. So really it's the hashing out and finding the right language to connect with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so what I think is kind of funny is if we had this conversation, perhaps now, after I've watched these last 3 weeks of debates, just continuously, one thing that I've really learned from these debates and come to appreciate is Destiny's skill for ensuring complete clarity during the conversation. Like he will literally be like, "Hold on, wait. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by this?" And it's kind of like, so I thought before, like, when I would think about that, as far as a question goes or what somebody said, if I didn't follow, I just kind of thought it was dumb. So I didn't want to do kind of the Jordan Peterson meme, like, what do you mean by the, or like how he kind of does that. I was like, God, that's so like, he asks that about everything. But I've actually seen the utility in asking questions like that. It does provide the utmost amount of clarity. So
and it also helps the other person if they haven't, let's say, fully articulated. It helps them refine their language as well.
Right. And I think that, so if Danny is a compatibilist, then at this point, us having this conversation, I think that me having kind of learned that skill over the past couple weeks, perhaps we would have come to that conclusion that we were standing on the same side, but maybe we had different perspectives. I'm not sure to what extent, because like I said, I think that determinism is more, I guess, how would I put that?
Wrong.
Right, right. Yeah, like I think it's more wrong in, I guess, certain aspects, and then in other aspects, I think that we're hard coded for certain things, whereas Danny does not. So I think we stand in weird positions relative to each other. I don't know, but okay.
And one thing I like about this group, it isn't just like, here's the Harrisonites and here's the Debrasoists. It's like we have a very, like, each of us have a complex view on different things, and there's a lot of overlap, but it's not a Venn diagram. It's like a 3-dimensional Venn diagram.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I'll get surprised by one or the other's perspective on something. I'm just like, oh, you believe that? Like I was surprised with Danny. I was like, wait, what? Like, didn't we have a conversation about this? Like the whole biology of sex drive and all this stuff or whatever, like a couple weeks ago, and you were on the opposite side. Like, so I don't know. Sometimes it surprises me. It's a pleasant surprise, though. I like to hash that conversation out. It's a lot of fun, even if I get a little bit jumpy and all over the place.
Yeah, one of the things with today's sort of bipolar politics is that the groups are actually pretty narrow, right? So it's like, if you're a conservative or Republican, it's like, you believe that law in Georgia, oh, well, it's just Democrats. They just want illegals to vote. And it's like, yeah, that's not the issue. That's not the issue I'm talking about. So it's like, yeah, well, I come down as in not in support of that bill, for example. It's like, it's not for the reasons of, I think Biden is God, therefore I follow him. And that people, you get attacked from both sides normally, because you're not following their little group.
Right.
And it's like when you actually have a conversation with people who think, we're all of us generally have that thinking thing in common. But when you deal with people, they come to different conclusions for different reasons, and it's interesting.
Right.
And with today's politics, it's like, oh, I'm a this, I vote this way, so, and people generally are trying to fall into, oh, therefore I'm a Republican, so I believe in all of 10 of their policies, and I'm a Democrat, so I believe in all 10 of their policies, and it's like people are just naturally more complex than that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the media kind of perpetuates a message of having to be in synchronization with your party, right? So it's like, well, if you're a Democrat, then you have to believe in this, you have to believe in that, right? You have to be for this bill, and then they'll put a negative spin, even if it may be a good bill that the other side is proposing. They're
Like,
still going to, right? Well, we can't let them get away with something good, so
like Obamacare was first written by Mitt Romney. Democrats shot it down, and then when they got in power, they took that. They literally just renamed it Obamacare, and they were like, "Oh, look at this great thing!" And the Republicans, they read it. It was the same thing that Mitt Romney was putting forward. That didn't really get much Republican support, but it went from like 50-50 in the Republican Party to like no. It's the same thing, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know when or if we'll get past something like that. You can hope so. You can hope maybe a little bit more centrism in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, see, the thing is, right? I mean, you got a pretty divided country, but as Danny says, things in Ireland and Northern Ireland were war. They were that divided, and it's like 40 years later, you wouldn't know it. It's when peace breaks out, it's difficult to keep people angry. And, this is one of the things in America. Both of the parties are using people's anger to get people riled up. Oh, nice bike.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like my new place, their window seals are not the best.
A brand new window, actually, in my apartment.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to do some homework over here.
Yeah. I work at a factory that makes windows.
Oh, nice.
So there you go. I'm a welder. I usually make like fences.
Send one to Frank.
Yeah.
Send a better one to Frank.
I'll ask you for some tips later. Like, how do I seal it properly? But yeah, I'll look into it.
Soundproof that bitch.
Hell yeah.
Usually how I fix things is with a hammer and a welder. So yeah, if I've got a problem at work, it either gets angle grinded, welded, or hammered.
Yeah. Hammer into place, then weld it.
Yeah, you like if something's not quite square, you get your 10-pound mallet, weld it. If it's to this or that, cut it, weld it. Yeah, it's generally I deal with like fencing and staircases and balconies and all that stuff. So
that's funny. Instead of like rock, paper, scissors, you use hammer, grinder, weld.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's generally my. I had a really, really annoying day at work the other day, and the next day I walked in, and all my coworkers were like, "Fucking, it's the fucking guy." So, but yeah, what was I saying?
Windows. I think Andrew was also saying something.
I don't know. It's all right.
Yeah, I forgot, George. George, I can't hold on to my thoughts, so don't expect me to hold on to your thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Have you, Andrew? Have you done?
Oh wait, I know what we were talking about.
What?
The American public.
Oh yes,
the polarization. I got this.
Northern Ireland.
Yes.
Yeah, I think when peace breaks out, the next generation comes along and they don't care. It's just they're not invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first generation with Twitter is going to be angry forever,
Mhm.
And the second one is gonna, I don't know. But one thing that I do find odd is people under the age of 24 aren't getting their driver's licenses, aren't having relationships, aren't even bothering with sex, aren't bothering with. It's just like the disengagement in society. They're not even bothering voting.
Right.
It's like this is. I don't understand that fully because it's like the AOPA, the American Owners and Pilots Association. They do a lot of good for general aviation, but they've put out a paper that in 1990 there were 300,000 private pilots in America flying light aircraft. Last year, pre-pandemic, they counted only 160,000 active pilots, and it's just like there's just no young people coming into it.
No.
And
Yeah, I think so. There's like a combination of things happening. A lot of the stereotypes, it's the digital world, social media. It's like that's where living is. I mean, TikTok. That's
Mhm.
and you hear I don't say conspiracy theories, but people try and predict trends. Like literally, virtual reality is just over the horizon. With
Mm.
NFTs, instead of buying like couches in real life, you'll just live very minimalistic. You put all your money into your avatar because
like,
that's how social dynamics work now.
yeah, kind of
It's
like
more. I'm sorry, what?
the movie Ready Player One.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly like that.
I've
yeah.
not seen that movie.
Oh, it's great. It is brilliant. I'm not into video games myself, but it's a brilliant movie.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about VR and all of that stuff just the other day because Friday I was talking on the phone with my friend who is 26 and doesn't have a driver's license and doesn't have all this other stuff that George was naming off, but he has a VR.
Yeah. Wait. I know that guy.
So um, he uh, he had sent me some videos that he had recorded with his VR, and I saw them, and so it was this weird game where like dummies kind of walk around, and you can just do with them whatever you want,
Oh,
and
that's terrifying.
yeah, he walked up to this dummy and grabbed it and like shot it in the stomach a bunch, and then shot it in the face, and like threw it on the floor, and like it
Oh,
looked so real. Like not the game, but like the mechanics of the game. It was oddly real, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, this one isn't even that good." And he sent me some videos of this other VR that actually looks like the graphics are actually a lot better, and you could do the same sort of things, like the physical things, like it was so realistic. It's not like you press a button and then you throw a left hook. It's like no, you can do whatever you want. You can grab something and hit this person like over the head at a whatever specific angle you want, and then pick them up and throw them through a window or something. Like it's so.
there are going to be some weird sexual fetishes in the future.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah,
The
I mean,
next generation are going to be the kinkiest in the world. Oh,
well, I thought about it, and I was like, what are got into my little rabbit hole thinking, and I was like, what are the implications of this? Like, what happens if the VR, like virtual reality, becomes better than real life? Like, why would I want to live in real life if I could live in a Naruto village and be my own ninja? Tell me why. Explain to me why I would want to be here doing that.
what level do you maybe like as Elon Musk says? Maybe we're already in a simulation. So it's like at what level of reality do you want to live? Do you want to live at this level, or do you want to go into the Matrix and go to the next level, or like maybe can we escape this simulation we're already in? I don't know. But,
Well, I don't know about a simulation already, but what I guess this would be kind of a lame simulation. I'd like to jump really high and run really fast in it if I were in a simulation. I like to have superpowers. I don't want to just live a regular life. So,
yeah. Exactly.
but that's what I thought. I was like, well, what if and like I could be a Dragon Ball character, or I could live in like the Bleach universe or something like that? Like, why would you not come home and just plug in immediately when you get home? If that's the case, like if I can live up in the Soul Society and be a Grim Reaper and shit, like why did I come home and like do I don't know, read a book? kind of shit
Yeah,
is that?
Ready Player One, the movie kind of touches on that a bit. You know, the world got so crap, people just put on their VR goggles. And I think, you know, biologically, we're based in, you know, maybe this is a simulation, but we're biologically based in it. And, you know, if you sit playing too many video games, you get fat in this reality. And you get a sore back in this reality. And you have to work and go to work in this reality. So I think escaping it, you don't actually escape it, right? Because biologically you're in this reality. So it's a case of, you know, like if you turn on your VR goggles, you still know that what you're doing isn't real. That you're not.
I don't know, George. When I was watching those VR videos, it looked kind of real, man. I was immersed in that.
Real, but you know, but you know, you gotta take off the VR goggles to take a leak. You know, you gotta go to work. You gotta take off the VR goggles at some point.
For now.
Right.
For now, right?
Yeah, for now. And well, my point would be like, what happens when you get to the point to where VR is so good that you don't want to take off the VR goggles? Like you literally, your life it consists of going to work and then coming home and hopping on that VR shit and going into your VR life. Like I don't think this is very close, to be honest.
Yeah.
But you know, they're making haptic feedback suits and like gloves to where you can through the VR, like the VR can sense the very movements of your fingers. So I'm just kind of like, okay, well, this is getting kind of weird, kind of cool, but I don't say cool to an extent.
I know NASA use VR for a lot of training.
Yeah, we even use it we use it for our operational guys, for how to reach places. We simulate the workspace, and we'll do a practice installation, just to see if we really captured all the little things. So they'll do it virtually, and it's like, okay, it all checks out.
But I still think the best simulator you guys have got at NASA is that zero-G pool for the spacewalks. Yeah, it's a swimming pool with the International Space Station at the bottom. And they, you know, it's like, all right, you're in your suit. You do feel gravity in the suit. But like I've scuba dived and it's like, yeah, that actually seems like a pretty good simulation. So it's, yeah, again, like if VR gets better, it's like, sure, there's no limits in VR, but the limits of things and yourself, that's really what defines you more than what something can do. You know, for example, an aircraft can fly, but it can't fly slower than a certain speed. It can't fly faster than a certain speed. It's one of those, you know, like if you take a car, it's defined by the fact that it can't fly, it can't swim, it goes on roads, and there's some off-road places it ain't gonna make it. It can't float. You know, it's like that's what makes it a car, not the fact that, you know, it's a box in that shape, because you can buy a model of that exact shape and put it on your desk, but it's not a car, right? You can take that model anywhere, but it's still not a car. You know, a car you can drive, but you can't fly. You can, you know, it's got a speed range that's pretty well defined. You know, speed limits and stuff like that. So
yeah, so like I think what you're doing, which is kind of fun, like abstract. So you're saying like a car is defined by what it can do, but it's also defined by what it can't do.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. It's like those land speeders and those pod races in Star Wars. Right. I've been thinking of ways to try and build that for years, but the whole point of it is that it can't fly, because then it's just an airplane. Okay. Right. A pod race, right. It floats at a meter altitude like a ground effect craft. Right. So there are ground effect craft that can't quite fly, but they skim over the water. But the whole point is that it's that, and that's sort of like towed along by a rope in the pod races and the Land Cruisers and things like that. But it's like a Land Cruiser is defined by the fact that it floats off the ground and it zips along really quick, but it can't fly, and that's what makes it cool. Otherwise, it'd just be an aeroplane, or if it didn't float, it'd just be a car.
Yeah,
So,
and then there's something else to that. I haven't digested it fully. Like Savoy Zizek, he kind of makes a joke about the negative and like how it's like the unconscious or the absence of stuff is also important. So he makes a joke, for example, a guy, let's say, goes into Starbucks and he's like, "Can I have a coffee without milk?" And the worker says, "I'm sorry, we don't serve coffee without milk, but we can serve coffee without sugar." And it's like, well, why can't you just give me the coffee without the milk? Like, that's the natural response, but it's like there's something in that. And it's the same, like, with ideologies, there's always, like, this absence in this gap. And it's defined by what it's missing. And that's part of what makes it. So the coffee without milk, it's not just coffee and it doesn't have any milk. Like, coffee without milk is one thing. So, yeah, it's just.
That's can't have a latte without milk. It ceases to be a latte when it's got no milk.
All right. Well, you guys kind of lost me a little bit, but no, I think I got kind of the gist.
Back to the virtual world thing.
Yeah. Well, I think as far as that goes, I think I've voiced my concerns about that. I did have those questions from earlier that I have still written down or typed out. So I didn't know if you guys were down to.
Yeah, just one more thing with the virtual world. I think I'm kind of idealistic. If we can't go down a road that can actually be destructive to society, like just like how a virus can destroy civilization, this can hurt us with our values. But I think there's something in us, like innately, that will always want to bring us back to reality. Like that's the right way to live.
Gosh, maybe. I don't know. When I think about like social media and how it actually takes so much time away from so many people by doing these certain things that will give us, reward, want to scroll more and make us literally like. I mean, if you notice when you're sitting there and doing anything, you may unconsciously reach for your phone in your pocket, and you just put it back.
No, yeah, for sure, 100%.
I wonder what. I mean, I think that stuff is only going to get better, and the fact that that's consumed so much of people's time at this point. I don't know. I don't know about our innate desires for coming back into reality.
Yeah,
maybe I'm a bit pessimistic.
Because I see it kind of like crack, like drugs. Let's say someone has a traumatic experience and they get into drugs. What you don't want to do is lie to them and say it's not really good for you because they know it's obviously this is doing good. So it's not about denying the pleasurable effects. It's what's more meaningful than crack. And it's like, oh, if you find out you have a kid, then you need to find something that's like more pleasurable than alcohol. It's not about just like restricting it. You need to find a reason or find a way to find more pleasure in something more worthwhile.
Right, for sure.
And I think that's the same thing with social media. It is gonna get more addicting and more tempting, but we're gonna have to find the meaning and enjoyment in real life and other more important stuff. Hopefully.
I see that. Yeah, hopefully, really hopefully, because the fact that this, social media crack has pretty much consumed like just, I would say a majority of people in first world places. Maybe I'm kind of over speaking here in terms of how many people have been consumed by social media in some way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's such a widespread drug, it seems, and it's been so successful in consuming people. So, gosh, I hope for the future that Frank is kind of thinking we're gonna have here, where we're gonna have an innate sense to come back to reality. That's what I'm gonna hope for. I'm gonna keep my mind on that one and not get down the rabbit hole of my bad thoughts about the VR.
My YouTube channel, one of the reasons I go and fly is to make videos. And for me, I've sort of hacked it into a way that it's like I love flying. I'd go flying anyway, but I've got a YouTube channel and I really enjoy the whole process of making videos, the flying, the editing the footage, putting it up, and seeing people's response. I enjoy all of that. So for me, it's like there have been days where it's like, oh, I wouldn't normally go flying because I couldn't be asked, but it's like, oh, I'd like to go and make a video. So for me, there's another little purpose to my going flying that day, and it does it like a lot of people just play flight simulator instead, and I personally do not understand that because I can't play a flight simulator for more than 5 minutes before I'm bored.
It's like
I'm so bored with it. There's no consequences. It's not going to kill me. I can fly anywhere, anything, anytime. Like, well, I won't do it. It's like, whereas it's like today, I've got all the paperwork to file for my private pilot's license all sorted out. I've got to file that, and then I've got to do test flight with the guy from the REN center. Anyway, it's complicated, but it's the fact that it's complicated. It's not like, oh, I can just go and do that anytime. It's like, no, I'm going to have to organize it. I'm going to have to book the plane. I'm going to have to phone the guy. We're going to have to organize the time. I'm going to have to be there on time. I'm going to have to do that. And then I have my license. And then it's a case of, well, I'm only rated for daylight VFR flying. So it's like, well, the weather's good. It's daylight. Yeah, now's my chance. Gotta go. So and you don't get that with video games. You just reset the weather. And it's, I don't know. To me, I don't get bored flying, even on a long flight, because it's like I'm moving. This is my chance. If I stayed at home, I'd lose the chance. Whereas with a video game, you just play it later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel you guys. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I guess there is a sort of there's a different feel to real life versus games. That's true. There are no consequences in games and simulators and things like that.
For now.
But there might, and that also, for now, and that also might be something that attracts more people. The fact that there's not consequences. But
your two questions.
We use simulator at my flying club because it's a free way of explaining different things to students. It's not used instead of training. It's kind of used to complement training and make it a bit cheaper. So we have the VR goggles and everything. The student can sit there in a cockpit. Somebody crashed a glider, so we cut the cockpit off and made that a simulator. And it's great because you can sit next to them and you can draw a graph and you can explain things that you don't have the time to on a flight when they're training. And it's like they can sit there for an hour and just get the concept and principle of something for free. So it's like, it's a great augmentation, but it's not a replacement for flying.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let me see if I can hit one of these questions.
Let's do it.
Before we get going to our Easter Sundays. So I've come up with 3 questions now, but I don't know if we'll have time to touch on all of them, because some of them. Well, one of them is really, really, I guess, far more interesting than the others, and I think it might take a lot longer to hash out. So maybe I'll save that one. Okay, so one of my questions. So I've heard a lot of people say, like, I'm an anarcho-libertarian or I'm an anarcho-communist. So I know what anarcho means, right? You're pretty much of anarchy, right? That's like what you want to be of. What, like, I don't know what that is. Like, what does that mean? Like, and opposed to what?
Yeah, so this is like the kind of path, the rabbit hole I went through last year or so, and this is when I started saying, okay, I'm gonna Google every single one of these definitions, and because there's a definition versus the connotation, and it's having the understanding of both to pick up what the person is talking about. So with anarchy, if you Google it, just, again, strictly by the English definition, and I compare it with like Webster. I like Oxford more because it's more history behind it. But anarchy is, I'm paraphrasing right now, but it's defined as like you're not a fan of any kind of government. But the second one is, and this is more interesting, it's a voluntarist government. So it's not that you're against structure or like a social infrastructure for organization, a government, but you'd be okay with it if everyone is okay with it. That's the trick. Like that's what voluntarism is. It's you can't enforce a structure on someone that doesn't want it. If you're gonna do something as a group or as a team, everyone has to be about it.
Okay, so
the archy there is what type of government you have. So you've got patriarchy would be all men, and matriarchy would be all women in governance, and then you've got your monarchy or mono, one government, one leader, or whatever, and that's kings and queens throughout history now. Democracy would be by the will of the majority, but then you've got anarchy. Well, is what you say in Latinic is means without. So if you have without government, without governance, everything would be done. It doesn't actually. I know it has the connotation of like Sid Vicious and the Sex Pistols and fuck the system, and it's like, but that it's not fuck the system. It's we should all do this. We should all be doing these things, following the law. There shouldn't need to be police to make us follow the law. Shouldn't need that. We should just do it. We shouldn't. So it would be without a justice system, without a government, without all of these different systems, but we should just do the right thing anyway. Well, that doesn't quite work out because give some people the opportunity and they will break the law and ruin it for everybody. I mean, there are other. There's theocracies in the world like Saudi Arabia and the Islamic State. That's a theocracy.
Okay.
The government is the religion. That seems to be how Islamic majority countries end up, because the Quran is basically a religion that is dictating how to run a country. Sort of politics and the religion are mixed in together. North Korea is technically a mortocracy because Kim Il-sung, even though he's dead, is still the president. So technically, there's one mortocracy. Autocracy is it was like Iraq, an autocracy where the Ba'ath Party with Saddam Hussein got into power. They got rid of all elections. They maintain power. Well, China with the Communist Party is an autocracy. There's one party in power. That party decides who's the leader, and he has absolute power. Okay. So, but the opposite to that is sort of anarchy, which is like we shouldn't need a government, we shouldn't have a leader, we should just do the right thing anyway.
Well, I don't understand how a large civilization would live together under a rule like that. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Just live under the rule that everyone should do the right thing.
Yes, it doesn't sound practical or realistic.
Right. Yeah, the practical point like, the police, the fire brigade, the military, they all need funding. And if it's a case of, well, I've earned this much, and it's that time of year where I've got to go and put my $2 in the tin. It's like, that's just not practical. That I would sign a check, one check to the military, one check to the police, one check to the whatever system to make it work. Having a small government. I mean, the anarchaic capitalists who say there should be no rules on capitalism, they've got one point, right, that, the market will decide what products and what services are needed, but then, and what wage you get paid to do those things. But the problem is that immediately, I mean, money follows a pretty good distribution anyway. So money is the problem with that, because the moment someone's got no money, then they're forced to take the cheapest option, no matter how unhealthy it is.
Okay.
They're forced to work because no matter how low the wages are.
Right.
So there sort of needs to be some constraints on a capitalist system that means that no, people can't earn less than this much. People have to pay this much tax. They have to, in Europe, one of the things that Britain was always going on about, the EU, this, that, and the other. Europe has standardized a lot of products and services, banking services, even food. There's minimum safety standards for food. There's minimum all sorts of standards. The problem is in an anarchaic capitalist system, the poorest people wouldn't be able to afford the food that would actually make what we would consider the minimum standard for safety now. They would be forced to eat substandard or food, which is dangerous. And so, in Europe, we have a minimum standard for safety on all consumables.
Right.
And we have a minimum standard for, cars and whatever. And sure, that means that some people wouldn't be able to afford that. But we also have a minimum wage, and we have a minimum level of education.
Right.
So, those things are expensive to put in place, but that wouldn't be able to be put in place in an archaic system.
Right. Okay. So
centralized. You need some centralized people to denote what the standard is, still be in touch with people to figure out what that minimum standard should be. You need some sort of policing to make sure that it's met, and that substandard food is not making it onto supermarket shelves and things like that. So you need a FDA or whatever, and you need a justice system that penalizes people who break those standards. So
with anarcho-capitalism, to me, by definition, I can see those two ideas being compatible. Libertarianism, that's iffy. Just briefly, libertarianism, they're always saying small government, but it's just the line is different for everyone. That's where it's gray, but that's their intent. For me personally, anarcho-communism, I've heard of that. I think by definition it's contradictive, but this is where you got to ask the person you're talking about, like, talk about what's your ideas on this, and because you gotta peel away the definition from the connotation, and then just to get coherent arguments.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I had never had it clarified for me before, so I appreciate that clarification. And George, you did a really fucking awesome job of kind of explaining everything. And then, like, I guess for me, anarchy. So they would spout, of course, all of the good things about anarchy. It's like, oh, well, we get to live as free as we want to live. Nobody's, nobody's rights are being infringed upon or something like that, right? I guess, as far as the police go, no one's telling you can't do this or you can't do that. I had only heard, the good arguments for it, and I had never heard any arguments against it.
What?
And I mean, George just kind of provided a plethora of reasons as to why.
I'm not pro-government and anti-liberal. I'm actually quite a libertarian person, but you just got to be sort of practical about certain things. in a
Yeah, I
way.
mean, you seem to be anarcho whatever it may be because you just explained all these reasons as to why it wouldn't work.
I mean, for example, when it comes to like food safety and product safety and things like that, you got to have some limit to what you can sell people.
No.
You got to have some sort of limit to what minimum wage is. Otherwise, people would end up in indentured servitude for like pennies an hour, like they did hundreds of years ago.
Right.
But the thing is I don't think the government should be telling you at all who you should sleep with, who you should marry, who you could marry, who you can associate with, what your thoughts can be, what your language can be. That crosses the line. You need to be as libertarian as possible
That's
without being.
it. That's it. Yeah, to me, like I see there's parallels between this and let's say religion and let's say like a relationship between a parent and a child. So to me, the ideal is to have that utopia to, have no need for police. That's like utopian. That's the ideal
Right.
that you're striving to. Just like
Right.
a kid, hey, you want to have the most freedom, you want to have the most responsibility. But I
Right.
think realistically, the level we're at, we as humans as we currently are, we can't handle that. Just like a kid can only handle so much responsibility.
No.
As we get more civilized and advanced, we'll be able to handle more and more freedom. But if we, let's say this is a religious part, if we start implementing these high standards or these idealized standards religiously, let me just be very general. Like the Ten Commandments, typical Ten Commandments from Christianity: don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, or you die. It's kind of Darwinian because if we live by that and we strive to those ideals, we'll fail. We won't meet it, and we can die off. Like our society will start to plummet. It won't be practical because it's not progressive. It's not increment. It's not. We're not growing toward the
one of,
ideal.
one of the biological limits of civilization is we evolved. We're mammals. We evolved for millions of years for survival, not to be civil, not for no. We didn't evolve for a goal. We evolved simply to survive. So no matter what environment you place 100 people in, say you take 100 people represent the whole span of human diversity, right? You're going to have a couple criminals. And the thing is the 10%, like let's say from 100 to 0% criminality, it's like the environment you put them in, one person's always going to be a criminal. But if you put them in a harder environment that's even unfairer, 2 people will be a criminal. And make it even unfairer, 3 people will be a criminal. So it's like if we evolve for survival, so it doesn't matter how civilized we get, if we relax certain laws, some people are going to take advantage because they're going to survive better in the short term by selling drugs or whatever. So there are sort of limits to how free we could be as a society.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that because, I guess the whole argument for anarchism is having the utmost amount of freedom, like the maximum amount of freedom, and I kind of sit there and I say, well, what are the trade-offs here? Like, what are we trading? That maximum amount of freedom for? Like, is it a particular sort of security? And then so I wonder because my mom's disabled and I sit there and I'm like, well, in a society like that, it's like, who do you rely on for any sort of assistance? Like in a society like that, it's like, well, I would just be having to work like doubly hard myself in order to provide for everyone, essentially. If there were no sorts of government programs that provided assistance for things like that. Or what about disabled people that can't put out as much work, therefore they can't make as much money as people who are not disabled, and how are they going to be like, I guess, in society?
Yeah, and this is why I was thinking like we're not there yet. As we get more civilized, let's say until we get better overall, which means also more moral. Then this is when we have more compassion. We're more efficient. We can produce more. We're able to take care of more people. But until then, just like a kid, you kind of gotta be told, this is what you gotta do for the sake of the family, then sake of society, and so on.
One thing about becoming more efficient there, Frank, is if you look over the last 200 years, productivity in the workforce has skyrocketed. The wages have gone up a tiny amount.
So no doubt.
So we could get more efficient, but it doesn't mean we can afford to help people. We would need something else would have to change. Our wage improve, not just the productivity and efficiency. So it's
it's multiple dimensions. This is why I also said like the morality as well.
Yeah,
I think they're all.
What does that mean, though?
So what I mean is, and this is kind of like I was talking about before, like it's all connected, like truth, functionality, longevity, morality, and they're not linear. Does that make sense? I don't want to assume, like, you know what I mean by it's not linear. So like, for example, for like 1-to-1, if me and George, let's say our pay scale, he gets $5, I get $5, but for every one he gets, mine is like 10. Okay. But it's not just that; maybe it's exponential.
So increasing in a linear fashion.
Exactly. So, but the relationships between truth, functionality, all of that, it's not linear. They're all different, but they are all more positive. So when it comes to, let's say, productivity, completely fair. You get the Pareto distribution and all of that. But I think you notice as civilizations do get more advanced, generally speaking, they also get more moral. Because if you're not moral, you're not going to work.
Yeah, right.
That's society.
I heard an argument that what I heard. This is the argument that I heard to make the minimum wage a living wage, and it was that as you allow people to have at least the bare necessities, they can start worrying about being moral. Whereas if they're sitting here struggling for survival, if they need to steal something in order to, have food for that day or have food for their kids or what have you, they're gonna steal the shit. Like, is that immoral? Well, I mean, they don't really have the means with which to provide. I mean, I thought about that, and then I thought, well, I wonder what motivation would be like in the workforce if every, I guess, minimum wage job had the sort of it gave you the bare necessities. Like, would people be more or less motivated? I wonder. Because you could just go to any other job and be like, well, I can just go to another job and that'll provide me with the bare necessities anyways. Like, I don't need this job.
Yeah. So this is why I think this is another gray area, because it's very gray. You need more context. It's kind of like welfare. Some people use it the right way. Some people, even though it is beneficial, some people can abuse it. What I would say is, like, again, for me, at least my thinking, like utopia, anarchy, like capitalism, that's the ideal. But just like George said, productivity. So like, what do we do with this? It's kind of like the order and chaos. To me, we're swinging too much this way. It's too much order, and within our structures, it's become corrupt. That's why corruption and corporation, governments. So it's like, what do? I don't want to get rid of the structure. This is the way I want to go, but you can't ignore this. So for me, personally, even though I don't think, let's say, a communism is the ideal solution, I do think we need more communist-like policies, like minimum wage, to balance the corruption that, let's say, generalizing, that the rich are getting.
One thing I've noticed moving from England to France, in England, I was actually on more money, but because the country is so expensive, I had to live with my parents, and I couldn't save any money. Having moved here, there is a very, very different attitude to work, because here we are on a minimum wage is a living wage. I live on my own. I'm on $11.50 an hour, which is not that much above minimum wage. Minimum wage is $10.03. But the different attitude at work is we work less hours, and it's not the most important thing in your life. So people focus on other things in their life. For example, people study longer here. People I work with, they spend more time with their family, and they focus more on that than just work. And for me, I've been able, through not having a car and not bicycling to work and stuff like that, I've been putting the little bit of surplus into flying, and maybe that'll become a career, which will pay very well if I can get to that point. So, if people are on a living wage and they can, through minor sacrifices, save money, then that focus shifts away from work and then a job that they hate. They end up with more, like here, people have more freedom. If they don't like their job, they just leave and get another one. Not that big of a deal to just not like your job and move on. So people actually end up a bit happier in the jobs they're doing, I find, because they've got the freedom to say, you know what, I'm going to go look for another job for a month. They're not stuck in that cycle of, well, I'm getting further and further in debt. So, yeah, I mean, living in a country that does have a living wage, some people waste more money and end up in a bad situation anyway. But at least here, I think people are happier at work. They work less. They focus more on their social life, and French people go and travel around France a lot more than Canadians traveled around Canada. English people, like I lived in Oxford, nobody had ever been to Newcastle. Right? This is why their accents are so different, right? You just don't travel around the country. Whereas French people, it's like you meet someone, and it's like, where are you from? Oh, they're from the other end of France. They're from there. They're from all over. And you meet people like that. And so I think the living wage, from my experience, I think is a great thing, because it gives you a bit more freedom. You're happier in your job, and you can do something other than just work.
I wonder what the small business image is like over there, because what I've heard from a lot of conservatives is, how the fuck is a mom and pop shop gonna be able to afford to pay somebody this many dollars an hour if they're just starting up and whatnot. So I wonder what that's like. I don't know if these are real concerns or if this is.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable that they're real concerns, but the thing is here, bread is cheapest. The huge thing of bread is still €1. The price of food is very, very low here. The price of rent is very, very low here. My rent for this apartment is €350 a month, and
was that in dollars?
about 350.
Oh, about the same.
About the same, roughly. There's a bit of a difference, but not much.
That is
so.
How much? What is that, like a one bedroom?
It's one bedroom, yeah, 30 square meters. So that's about I don't know what's square meters to meters squared to.
What about you, Frank? What does a one bedroom look like over in Florida?
Oh, okay. So, we're doing property stuff. It's a lot more than New York. 100%. Well, a lot more than West Coast. So in terms of American geography, and I think this is just true everywhere. When you get higher populations, property value goes up. So the places like in the U.S., New York and California, they're really popular. But then you have the excess inequality. So in New York, they're it's almost like a good thing. Like you see the hustle, you see the poor people, but in the West Coast, now all the rich people and all homeless people, and it's very negative. So in America, a lot of Texas has become a new place for a lot of rich people to go to.
Yeah.
But I think Florida is Florida is 100%. I've already seen projections from different fields of work. Florida's another place that's getting popular. So property value is starting to go up here. It's still sort of normal, I would say. The Midwest, where there's low populations, it's really cheap. It's relatively cheaper. But Florida's, I think, currently normal, on its way to get a bit more expensive for the average person.
Yeah, in Colorado, a 1 bedroom is like $1,000.
Exactly. Same here.
Wow. Yeah. You see, the thing is it's not that the living wage here is terribly high. It's 10.03 an hour.
Right.
It's the fact that the government, and again, if you just raise the minimum wage in America, the price of rent goes up because the landlords think, I can just charge more. And they just raise the price of rent. They raise the price of everything around you.
Right.
Whereas here, it's like the rent price, it's 20% of rental properties are local government rentals. So that crashes the price right down to start with, because it's like they charge, it's on a needs-based sort of, like I wouldn't get a government rental because I don't need one. I work in the private sector, I make good money, and I'm not homeless, so not needed. But they charge $200 a month in rent. Well, then private landlords just can't get away with charging $1,000 a month in rent. They have to cater to the market, which says no more than 350. So they've done things to keep the cost of living low, and like a mom and pop bakery, they get by. They hire less people who work less time. They're not open Sunday. They close at 6 o'clock. They're not 24 hours. So it's like, well, they get by. And a lot would have to change in America for a living wage, not just increase the minimum wage.
Right.
And then, like, one thing that I think is very useful for discussions about policy and governments that I think a lot of people kind of are not aware of. We need to separate the ideal versus the next better step. Because a lot of people, they'll say, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. But I think a lot of people can agree that on a certain ideal, and then it's just, okay, so we all agree on this. Now, what's the best way to get there? Because those are two different discussions.
Right.
I've been saying exactly that about that bill in Georgia. It's like, yeah, voter fraud is bad. I agree. I don't want voter fraud. But there's been 31 cases in the last 21 years. The proposed law to counter that is far worse.
Okay.
It's like, I don't want voter fraud. And the thing is in an ideal world, yeah, you swipe your ID, boom, you go and vote. But the problem is that will have so many errors, scanning in IDs, and it'll make the line so long that a ton of people won't get to vote. So it's like, it's difficult. It's like they are good at catching voter fraud, the police, and there's not been that many cases. There's never actually swung any single election in American history. So it's like the bigger issue is, let's not have a delay to voting that would cost thousands of people from voting. The very, very rare case of voter fraud is like the cure is worse than the disease.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then, like, again, with like the property value thing and let's say living wage, I think a conservative like Ben Shapiro, and he said stuff like this before. People need to be more accepting of moving. So just, we have a lot of land here in America, and there are plenty of locations where you can move to a cheaper location. And there's even a small group of people who can't even afford to move. But the thing is that there's this balance. And I think it's just this, there's the ideal, but the next step, and no one really knows what the best next step is. So I think it's always this pendulum of like, we don't know what the next best step is. So maybe this year will be a little bit more democratic, and then this year will be a little bit more public, just to try and keep things balanced. It's like, It's like if you have a sibling, and there's this awesome trick. The parents say, "You cut the candy bar, but then you pick it." And I think it's kind of the same thing a little bit. It's this year it's your turn to get a little bit, but be aware next year it's their turn. So it's just this is the reality. We can't be perfect now. So it's just we both have to accept that we're not gonna get what we want. And this is the whole moral thing. I think it takes time, and it takes time to get civilized. But
I think one of the big problems in America with the living wage is not directly connected to the conversation that goes on. Just raise minimum wage. Either raises is. I think the problem is banking. It's with banking, because a bank would rather have one guy with 100 mortgages than 100 people with one mortgage. Because he's a middleman. He owns 100 houses, lives in one, rents out 99 others. And it's like those 99 people pay more to live in a rented place than they would to just pay the mortgage itself. So what you end up with is landlords who don't actually own these properties. They're the owner, but they're paying the mortgage with your rent. So one of the increases in the cost of living in America and Canada and England too is that one guy has 100 mortgages and 99 people are paying rent. So only 1 in 100 people are a homeowner. And one thing in England that always helps the economy is when the government says we want houses built, but boosts the economy. And people can buy a house. In England, a country of 66 million people, there's 300,000 houses need building at any given time. And it's like there's not enough houses to start with, which is why the price is so high. There's just market dynamics, supply and demand. The banks would rather give one guy 100 loans than 100 loans to one loan to each person, because it's more secure. They have more leverage over him. And as a middleman, if he's making money, then bank's happy, he's happy. That deal is going to go on forever. Whereas, if people have paid more than the value of their house, and something happens, and they say you can go screw off for the rest of your money, they got to deal with 100 people rather than one guy. So I think one of the problems is that banks are not giving out mortgages easily to people. The demands on a mortgage is too high. Another problem with the banks is they're also not giving out business loans. Banks are not speculating enough money. And one of the things that caused the crash in 2008 was they were speculating all of this money in houses that were empty shells. Right, and houses that were built just to get the loan, and then people would just get rid of it. They just would drive out of the house in a Mercedes, because you could buy a house with a Mercedes and then not pay the mortgage because it was government insured. It's like, no, you need the banks to be giving out mortgages. I think student debt is a major problem in England and America now, in Canada too. It crushes the time in your life where you can take risks and build a company. So it's like you have to take a stable job, and you're not making new companies, which is a much better for the economy if people are leaving university and making a job rather than taking a job. Then you end up with more diversity in your industry, and you make more things and better services, and people make more money because there's less hands that it goes through before it gets to them. So I think that the problems with the cost of living crisis in America is the student debt, the fact that you're paying rent, not mortgage, and you can't get a loan to start a business. It's very difficult. They've created a very difficult a very difficult situation for the majority of the population.
And I think this parallels with like a lot of different things. It's like you said, that there's all this demand, and that's kind of like one of the things that capitalism addresses, like scarcity. So supply and demand. And the thing is, this is there's this scarcity, and one of two things are going to happen. You can only have so much scarcity before there's a revolution. So
Yeah.
either, and this is the thing, either people get moral and get more charitable. We figured out ways to be productive, efficient, blah blah blah. We figure out ways to help people, on the lower side. If not, the government's going to come in and try and force it in order to protect society as a whole.
Well, one of the first laws in Britain after the Industrial Revolution was anti-profiteering, which is where some rich guy would come in, buy all the food in a town, and then people would get hungry, and they'd sell off the food at 50, 100 times the price. It hadn't moved anywhere; it just changed ownership. So, and that profiteering is absolutely illegal, and that's one of the first capitalist laws that came about. And it's like, well, of course, if you don't have that rule, of course, people are going to do that. They're going to supply and demand. If they own 100% of the supply and there's 100% demand, they name the price. So that's why we have
and
those
to
laws.
me, like the capitalist response would be, and I agree, it's one of those like higher moral things, or you need more responsibility. The business owner should be like, oh, I'm not going to sell it to you. And they don't have to, according, to like, let's say, anarcho-capitalism. I'm not required to sell it to you. But then that's just, the thing is, that requires more.
Sometimes
Sometimes they don't know.
And for example, Disneyland, when they bought the land for Disneyland, they registered thousands of fake companies to buy that land so that people didn't know what they were doing. It was like the SR-71. The US bought that titanium for the SR-71s from the Russians.
Well, even like more relevant, the COVID cases, there were people that were buying tons of toilet paper and just doing that, the profiteering.
Yeah, and in England, it made me laugh because it's like what English people didn't realize is nearly all the toilet paper in Europe was made in England. So what they thought, oh, if they close the border, we're not going to get any toilet paper. And it's like, no, that's the one thing that you're always going to have in England is toilet paper. There's literally a limitless supply. So they ended up with like rooms full of toilet paper. And they're like, but why isn't it all sold out? Because it's manufactured in England. You dummies.
Well, guys, I gotta take off. I gotta start on my errands for Sunday and my taxes. So wish me luck on that one, right?
Yeah, have fun.
Yeah.
Sorry we didn't get questions.
Yeah, I look forward to those, man, next week for sure.
Yeah. I got some other ones, and I think it'll have give us an even longer conversation. So I'll bring those to the table. So just keep that. Do you guys want me to tell you now so you can think about it over the next week?
Yeah,
pop it on you. Okay. I'll tell you guys now then. So, my first question is, what do you guys think about, I guess, the education system? So, and this is kind of encompasses the core concepts and how long kids are pretty much forced to be in school. So as far as the core concepts go, like what the utility is, do you guys agree with the way in which it's set up? So I would say that the core concepts are history, math, science, and then whatever language is predominantly spoken wherever you're at, right? I would say those are the main core concepts.
I can tell you my policy on this right now.
Okay.
We don't need no education.
Okay.
Hey, teacher, leave those kids alone.
All right. So that's gonna be one. I guess we already have George's perspective, and then one that actually came up during this conversation was objective morality. So I want to know what your guys' perspective is on that. So I'll give you a week on that one, George, unless you have something right now.
I don't have a song for that one, actually.
Okay, all right. All right, guys. Well, hey, I always have a good time speaking with you guys. So I look forward to it next week. And I hope you guys have a good Easter Sunday.
You too, man.
Oh, having a good one. I've been flying, so I'm happy.
All right.
Nice.
See.
One question for you. You work at NASA, so how would I get information on the X-15? Could I ask them for drawings of the engine?
I really doubt it. I think that might be sensitive material.
More than 50 years old, though.
Oh, okay then. Actually,
The X-15 was 1958, so it was technically NACA at the time.
I could ask around.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested in is the turbo pump.
All right. Let me just write this down. X15 drawings, turbo pump.
The engine of the X-15 was the XLR 99.
All right.
They used a couple different engines for in testing, but the main engine, the throttleable engine I'm interested in is the XLR 99.
Okay. And so by next week, I'll definitely have an answer for you.
Okay, cool. Because yes, I've got an idea, and I'm quite interested in that engine. Not to build one myself, but I'm not trying to build this technology or anything. But no, I just had a bit of a thought, and I don't really know how to prototype it, and I don't have the money to
exactly to build from scratch.
Yeah, in this 30 square meter apartment, I can't really start building engines and stuff in it, but yeah,
One step at a time.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to build a home-built aircraft, and my gliding club says I can use the workshop, which is great, but $20,000 for an engine.
Yeah. I don't know. One day I plan on making a giant robot, but
like the ones in Japan. Oh, cool.
that's my main motivation to be an engineer. Just that.
Yeah.
Build giant robots.
Growing up sucks. Just stick to the robots and the airplane.
It's the coolest thing. I mean, I can make a plane, or I can make a giant robot that can fly.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I know. Like, this is what makes me laugh with women. They're always like, "Oh, you need to grow up," and it's like, why?
It's fun.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, you can't build an aeroplane in my house. It's like, fine, I'll live in the garage, So
yeah, like eventually, maybe in 20 years, I was thinking of the way it would work. I would buy a hangar.
Yeah.
And then I would just fit inside of that.
Yeah, it's always been my dream as a kid to have a hangar full of airplanes. And I'd really love to build some experimental airplanes too. Have you ever seen the Facet Mobile?
No.
It's lifting body aircraft. Yeah, FACETMOIBLE.
Okay. This is gonna be fun.
Oh yeah. Apparently a hand. Yeah, no wings.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I might have seen this, but this is cool.
Yeah. Just think it's a flying wing that's like really short. Stuff. But no, I've always wanted to build experimental aircraft, and
especially if you can fly in it. Yeah, I'm seeing people here with like PVC tubes, and that makes sense if it's really light.
Yeah.
Well, there goes another hobby that's gonna go on my list.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the only thing about aviation is like, welcome to aviation. You're now broke.
Yeah.
And here in France, the experimental rules are much more stringent than in America. So, but yeah, no, I don't know. I've got to find some way of building some of the experimental ideas I have.
Yeah, this thing just gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, that's the thought. But start somewhere is always very expensive.
Yeah. Like,
how long have you been working at NASA?
well, like I'm a contractor, I've been working at the center for 5 years. Yeah, it's
Cool.
pretty cool. Like, I'm really grateful for my job, especially, with everything going on, I get to work from home.
Yeah.
And if this was my backup job, it's like, yeah, my backup job is working at the Kennedy Space Center. Like,
Yeah.
who can?
That's not.
Yeah. So
How would I mean? I'm here in France, but how would you get into that sort of career?
So this is something that's been just very relevant with me lately, and it's really the age old question: how do I get this job? It's all
Yeah.
about connections. 80% is connections.
Yeah.
I think the only way you can make it through the filter is if you're like in the top 2%, top 5%, where it's blatantly obvious this is the guy or this is the person. Besides that, it's connection. And that's how I got in. I graduated. I was still working on projects to build up my experience for a couple of months. A friend invited me to his work party. He's like, hey, just come over. And everyone had like a good personality, like they're sociable. And I was able to be that way as well. And then I was able to prove my experience. Like, I actually know how to build some stuff. I'm not just the book guy. And they called me the next day. It's like, hey, yeah, we just like you and your stuff. And so I got pretty lucky. I'm really grateful to that friend because
Yeah,
without
you
him,
get connections. That's how you get most jobs. I mean, like, well, unfortunately, like, I'm the absolute wrong nationality. Like, one of the things with rockets and stuff you deal with is you would have to be an American citizen.
yeah,
That's one of the security things. Here in France, I'd have to be born in France and a French citizen to work on anything military, apart from the Foreign Legion, which tempting, but no aeroplanes. But like it was through the flying club here that someone heard that I was out of a job, and they put me in contact with their guy they work with, and it's like that job. Had I been able to take it, being because of my citizenship, that job was a 50 grand a year job, doing basically what I do now.
yeah.
Of the cost, right? So it would have. I'd have had to have moved, but for 50 grand, it's worth moving. And then it's like you can get enough. Yeah, through flying clubs, you just make such good connections, and I'm hoping it'll pay off one day.
Yeah, that's something like I'm kind of just busy just getting my life together. So that the next week or so, I'll have everything more structured. That's something I'm actively trying to do. Just find certain hobbies and such where you can make those connections. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be flying. I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine who's, her life is not gone to her plan, and I was just like, join a club, and she's like, no, I don't like this, I don't like that, and it's like, it's not about golf, it's about making friends. It's like people don't go to golf, play golf. It's annoying.
Yes.
I played it. It's awful. It's a horrible. It's the best way to ruin a good walk, as Winston Churchill put it. It's about making friends.
Oh my God! It's just like going to a bar. You don't go to a bar because you like bars. You go to a bar to find a mate.
Yeah, exactly. You go to bars for a few reasons: women, your mates, and beer.
Yeah.
Not the heck. Oh well, this bar was built in 19. No, you go there for a laugh, right? So it's more about finding friends that you have common interests with, and it doesn't matter if it's golf or ice hockey or flying, whatever. It's hobbies are an important part of life, and that's the other thing with like the living wage here. It's like people actually take in their hobbies. The big hobby here is bicycles. Tour de France, bicycle races. Normally in town, there's loads of bicycle races every year. They shut down some roads and they have like a 5-10K route, and it's broken up quite well. You got your young guys, you got your sort of 10-year age brackets, and there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money thrown at bicycling here. The local race, that will be on local TV. And it's the hobby. And this is one of the observations I made about the online arena, which is a problem, right? So if, I've joined I'm part of two different aero clubs. They're at the same hangar, but one's a gliding club and one's a flying club. And it's like the gliding club has 50 members, 2 of which are girls. And the flying club has 50 members, 1 of which is a woman, right? And it's like those women, funny thing, they all end up marrying pilots, right? But it's like 50 people. It's like, right, you go from the bottom 10 who are learning how to fly, and then you get up into the top 40. Then you got another 30 guys who are licensed pilots. Then you got 10 guys who are like board members and a couple of instructors. So it's like you got this hierarchy. You got your students. Then you got the majority of people in the middle who are just licensed pilots who just rent airplanes and go and do fun things together. Then you got your small group of people who are the organizers, the instructors, all of that stuff. And it's like you fit yourself. In a year you've gone from there to there. And then another year you're there, and then you get your commercial license and you get an instructor, and boom, you're there within a couple of years. Problem with like the online thing is, if you're playing an online game, you're one of millions of people, not 50. You're there all the time, and it's like if you're like the number. There's 24 hours a second of footage put on to YouTube, and it's like. I don't do the YouTube for the fame and the money. I do that because I enjoy making videos. But PewDiePie is here with his 50 million subscribers, and it's absolutely a hierarchy like that. And you've got millions of people at the bottom, and it's like moving up and moving around and moving up through hierarchies and helping people below you. That really combats depression. And I'll phone them back later. I'll phone them back.
But yeah, it's just that's something that I don't know if you ever talked about this, but I think about is just the way our society is structured with technology and just all the social infrastructures. Communities are not as well. We talked about religions used to serve as a great place for community, but now it's like political parties, whether it's conservatives, Republicans, politics is kind of replacing that. But it's like, how do we develop new communities? How do we create them organically? I don't think they can come naturally. I think there's have to be a certain group of people or a person to take the initiative to give birthplace to a community, create a space or a hobby, and that's what's going to attract people to come.
Yeah, the YouTubers that create a little community around their videos, they're the really successful ones. Like normally some YouTuber, they'll make a popular video, it'll go viral, and then it's the law of diminishing returns. It just gets less and less and less and less. And then eventually they're a nobody again, but they had a viral video. Whereas the guys who, slowly build up and they build this community around what they do, it's like the videos are just sort of a vehicle for the community. It's like sort of meeting place, a church or whatever. Those guys seem to do much better than anybody else, and they make more money. But yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for kids who, they don't. I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't really have any friends in high school. I didn't have anything in common with anybody in high school. I was quite bullied. I didn't really have any friends. I didn't have anything to go and do with them because they were really like drugs was the big thing when I was in high school. It was like pot. Everything, nutmeg, everything. They tried everything. And it was like, I don't go to parties like that because I'm not interested. I didn't have anything in common with that community, but I had the flying community, where I went for my weekends. So it was like, I feel sorry for kids now that they don't have that community. They come home and it's like their parents are the only community they have, and it's like, God, you need to get away from that. You need your peers. You don't only need your parents. And I kind of feel sorry for them because they just kind of go online and that's it. I know we're online now. I know the irony, but it's like this online group, we got like 5 or 6 members, and 5 or 6 members, we talk once a week. You know, it's not too much. It's not too many people. It's a community. It's small, but yeah, I just kind of feel sorry for them because it's like, yeah, no wonder why they're depressed. That
Yeah.
you know they're in the worldwide arena, and it's like, yeah, you're a nobody. It's like join a baseball club. Do something with people, and it's well, anyway. But
Yeah, that's it. That's it for me, at least for today.
yeah,
I'm gonna keep thinking of some more things, especially George's question. Gonna try and find the answer. I'm sorry, no, Andrew's question.
yeah.
Like, no, not you.
Yeah, no, they're two good questions. Yeah, I'll give it a thought, give it a bit of a think about. I'm not sure if I'm going to be around. The only reason I'm here is because I finished flying early today.
Okay, yeah. Is the curfew still 6 p.m.?
Now
7, they extended it. Yeah, because I was gonna ask. Are you taking the vaccines? I was interested in AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca, yeah. So the thing with that is, I'm not a doctor and I don't have the information, so this is purely speculative. But in 11 million cases of people taking the virus, 11 people got blood clots, and I would be willing to bet they were all women on birth control.
Okay, yeah, because I've read that, and I've read that it was, for choosing my words carefully, it was like a false alarm, the way it was raised.
Abundance of caution is why it got temporarily paused in France.
And in Canada.
Yeah, and then Italy and Germany, Switzerland, they all went mad. Yeah, you know what? It did get rushed through. I'm my age group in France. The earliest I can get vaccinated is May, so I'm not sure if I'll need it then. I'm not sure if my aviation medical will let me take the vaccine. So if my aviation medical doctor says no to the vaccine, then I'm not taking it. If he says sure, it would. If they guarantee that it will not lose my medical for just having taken it, then yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about getting it, but if I had to pick one, it would be that one. It's not currently available in the U.S., but Brad and Heather Weinstein, they spoke about it a bit, so I'm following their discretion because I think they're credible. And
yeah, I'm just speculating. I would guess that the blood clots were women with birth control because that's women on birth control are very high risk for blood clots. So that's a guess. I'm probably wrong, but
yeah, that's just your current thoughts.
Yeah, that's my initial thoughts on it. But 11 cases in 11 million. You know what? Coronavirus kills a lot more people than that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, 11 out of 11, 1 in a million, or my age group, the risk is what, 2%? Less than that, 1% or whatever. But yeah, balance the risks.
Exactly.
All
right. Well, I'll let you go for today.
And I'll see us on YouTube soon. So,
yeah, definitely.
Cheers.
Cheers.